The Secret of the Law, Keys to Living Without Suffering. Introduction. What if everything in your life, yes, even the most painful, confusing, and heartbreaking parts, wasn't a mistake? What if everything happening to you right now was not random, not unfair, but quietly guided by a force greater than your understanding? A force that does not punish or reward, but teaches. A law that is not written in books or enforced by men, but one that governs the order of life itself. Gerardo Schmedling once said, "Everything that works flows because it's within the law. Everything that doesn't work isn't difficult, it's impossible." At first it sounds absolute, maybe even cruel. But listen again, a little softer. There's love in that statement, there's clarity. Perhaps the problem is not life. Perhaps the problem is that we don't understand how life truly works. This audiobook is not another set of theories to add to your mental collection. It's a path, a quiet revolution of perception, a mirror to help you stop fighting what is happening and begin to understand it. It begins with a conversation, a disciple asking his master, "How do I know what's inside the law and what's outside of it?" The master, with a tender smile, replies, "Everything you need is within the law. Everything you want is outside of it." That single sentence is the seed of transformation. We spend our days chasing what we don't have. More money, more recognition, a different face, a new partner, a better country, something else, something more. But rarely do we pause to ask, why don't I already have this? Why is it so difficult to attain? And deeper still, could it be that I simply don't need it? It's not an easy idea to accept. It cuts across everything we've been told. Fight harder, want more, never settle. But Gerardo's teaching flips that thinking on its head. He tells us, what you truly need is already present. What you don't have is simply not meant for you, not right now, not in this form, not for your evolution. And that is not cruelty, it's kindness. That is the law. The law isn't personal, yet it is profoundly intimate. It doesn't adjust to our whims, but it always aligns with our growth. It gives us exactly what our soul needs to wake up, not what the ego craves, not what the mind insists upon, but what leads us back to peace. This is where the truth becomes clear. Suffering isn't caused by life. It's caused by misunderstanding life. And what a relief that is, because it means you don't have to change your circumstances, your past, or the world around you. You don't need to fix others or chase perfection. You simply need to learn how to see differently, to listen deeper, to meet life on its own terms, not yours. When you begin to recognize the difference between what you want and what you truly need, something incredible happens. You stop demanding, and you start appreciating. You stop complaining, and you begin listening. You stop resisting, and you start receiving. You begin to trust that the life unfolding in front of you is not your enemy, but your guide. This journey through Schmedling's wisdom will take you across 7 essential truths. You'll come to understand why your current life is not an accident, how your desires create suffering, and how peace is not something to pursue. It is something that emerges when you stop trying to reshape reality and instead begin to understand it. This path is not about memorization. It's not a checklist of behaviors. It is about comprehension, deep, quiet understanding that seeps into your cells. The kind of knowing that brings you back to yourself. Not a version of yourself shaped by fear, scarcity, or expectation, but the version that was always there beneath the noise. You may hear things that challenge you. You may feel discomfort, resistance, or even sadness. That's okay. That's part of the journey. Every moment of tension is an invitation to expand. Every moment of peace is a sign you are beginning to align. Let's be very clear. This is not about giving up on your dreams. It's not about settling. It's about waking up from the illusion that peace comes from controlling life, waking up to the truth that peace comes when you finally say yes to what already is. As you listen, stay open. Don't rush to analyze. Don't try to agree or disagree too quickly. Just let the words enter. Let them soften you. Let them touch the part of you that already knows. That part of you, the quiet one, the wise one, has been waiting for this. And if you take away only one thing, let it be this. Peace doesn't come when everything is perfect. Peace comes when you realize everything already is. Let's begin. Chapter 1. What you have is what you need. We're conditioned to believe that happiness lives just beyond the next goal. One more achievement, one more relationship, one more dollar, one more step. We're told that peace is something to chase. But what if that chase, the one we've normalized, the one that keeps us sprinting through life, is the very thing pulling us away from peace? What if the constant longing for something different isn't a sign of ambition, but a misunderstanding of how life actually works? The truth is, you already have everything you need. Not because the universe is withholding more, not because you've been forgotten or punished, but because what you have right now is exactly what your soul needs to grow. It's not accidental, it's not incomplete, it's exact. But we don't live like that, which is true. We look at our lives and count what's missing. We compare, we envy. We think peace will arrive when things change, when we finally get the love, the success, the freedom, and in doing so, we miss the richness of what's already here. We reject the moment. We escape the now. We suffer. You might hear that and resist it. You might say, "But I'm stuck in a job I hate," or "I'm dealing with an illness I didn't ask for," or "I'm lonely." And that resistance is valid. It's human. But here's another question worth asking. What if the things we fight the most are the ones carrying the deepest lessons? There's a man who hated his job in finance. Every day felt like a grind, like a betrayal of his passions. He dreamed of quitting, of doing something creative, but couldn't find the courage. Then one year, after a layoff, he was forced to sit with himself. He began writing to make sense of the chaos. One blog post led to another, and eventually, a new career opened. He later admitted the layoff was one of the best things that ever happened to him, though he couldn't see it at the time. Or the woman who went through a difficult divorce, convinced her life was unraveling. But in the months that followed, she began to reconnect with parts of herself she had abandoned. She found joy in solitude and strength in independence. And when new love came, it wasn't from desperation, it was from wholeness. You see, what you're given, your situation, your emotions, your relationships, is not random, it's a map. It's your personal curriculum. Whether it looks like joy or sorrow, support or struggle, it's here for you. What you have might be joy, or it might be grief. It might be connection, or the ache of loneliness. Each state and each phase is equally valuable. We tend to rank them, to assume one is better than the other. But the truth is, pain teaches just as much as peace, sometimes more. What you need today might be the very thing you once ran from. It's easy to embrace this truth when life is flowing, but when it gives you discomfort, disappointment, or loss, when it hands you something you never would have chosen, that's where the challenge lies. The ego says, "This isn't fair." But there's a quieter voice that whispers, "This is necessary." Because the law guiding life is not emotional. It doesn't judge you or punish you. It simply places before you the exact conditions you need to grow. Whether you see the gift or not is up to you. Pause for a moment and really look at your life, not just your bank account or your relationship status, but your inner world, your body, your breath, your people, your patterns. Ask yourself, what if this is exactly what I need right now? Not to be comfortable, but to evolve. That single question can transform everything. It turns frustration into awareness. It turns resistance into reverence. It helps you stop fighting life and start learning from it. You may feel like you've waited too long for change, but life doesn't move based on time. It moves based on readiness. The moment you fully understand the lesson in what you already have, space opens, and something new begins. Until then, life will lovingly repeat the same themes, not to punish you, but to support you. This is why gratitude is not just a virtue, it's a doorway. When you truly see the value in what you already have, you shift into alignment. And in that alignment, life flows again. There comes a quiet moment where you stop needing everything to be different. The mind softens, the heart exhales. You begin to feel safe, even if the future is unclear. You begin to feel home, even if life isn't perfect. That is the feeling of living in alignment. That is peace. And here's the secret. Life isn't asking you to obey anything. It's inviting you to understand. The more you understand, the less you resist. And the less you resist, the more life supports your unfolding. Next time you find yourself scrolling through your dreams, wishing for something else, pause. Ask, what is life already giving me that I haven't yet valued? Maybe it's your health. Maybe it's a quiet morning. Maybe it's the difficult relationship that's teaching you patience or boundaries or strength. You don't need to rush to the next thing. You don't need to fix your whole life in a weekend. You only need to start listening. Let go of needing it to be different. Begin to trust that you are not behind, not broken. You are simply in the exact place that life needs you to be right now. And what you have, right now, is the lesson. Chapter 2. The Suffering of Wanting. There's a quiet kind of suffering we've all come to accept as normal. It doesn't scream, it doesn't always bring tears, but it lingers. It lives in our minds, in our dissatisfaction, in the whisper that says, "This isn't enough." It's the voice of wanting. Wanting in itself is not wrong, it's human, it's natural. But what we rarely question is what happens when that wanting becomes the lens through which we see everything, when each moment is measured by what we lack, when joy becomes a future event instead of a present experience. That's when wanting turns into suffering. Suffering begins the moment we confuse what we want with what we need. We believe that the only way to be okay is to obtain what we desire. So we chase, we negotiate with life. We try to mold our days, our relationships, and even our identities to match the image of our desires. But each time life doesn't deliver what we expected, pain arises. What if the things we want most are the very things that don't belong to us, not because we are unworthy, but because they don't align with the truth of who we are right now? What if the absence of what we want is not failure but protection? The inner voice says, "I should have this by now." But the deeper intelligence of life replies, "If it's not here, it's not meant to be." And in that space between desire and acceptance is where our deepest inner conflict begins. We rarely stop to ask where our desires come from. We assume that because we want something, we must need it. But most of our wants are echoes of comparison, of cultural conditioning, of fear. We see someone else with something we lack, and we mistake their path for our purpose. And when we finally get what we thought we needed, the satisfaction fades, and a new want takes its place. This cycle of never-ending craving is the nature of the restless self. It isn't satisfied with what is. It seeks novelty, control, validation, and certainty. And it tells us a dangerous lie, that peace is always one step ahead of where we are. But suffering at its core is born from one thing, the refusal to accept reality. We want life to match our preferences. We want circumstances to shift in our favor. We think, this moment should not be happening like this. And in that resistance we suffer, not because reality is cruel, but because we're out of alignment with it. Desire itself is not the problem. The problem is when desire becomes our master, when our happiness, our peace, and our sense of self-worth depend on the things we don't yet have. That's when desire becomes a prison dressed as hope. There's something within us, something still and wise, that already knows the truth. It knows that peace isn't waiting for us in the future. It knows that nothing external can permanently provide what we're truly seeking. Because what we long for, whether it's love, security, success, or freedom, is not an object. It's a feeling, a state of being. And that state is not granted, it is revealed. It doesn't mean we stop dreaming. It doesn't mean we deny our ambitions or avoid growth. It means we stop confusing desire with direction. When our movement comes from clarity, not lack, then we are no longer running away from our lives. We're moving deeper into them. Take a moment to ask yourself, what do I think I absolutely need right now? What am I chasing that feels essential to my happiness? Then ask one more question. What is the feeling I think I'll get when I have that thing? Because often we discover that we're not really chasing money or people or success. We're chasing belonging, safety, and love. And those things, no matter how much the world tells us otherwise, are already accessible inside us. Life does not respond to force. It responds to alignment. And until we recognize that what we truly need is already present, maybe not in the form we expected, but in the form that teaches, we remain trapped in cycles of wanting. Suffering, when looked at closely, is not a punishment. It's a signal, a teacher. It shows us where we are attached, where we are asleep, where we are still convinced that something outside of us holds the key to our peace. But the moment we stop trying to make life give us something and begin to receive what it's already offering, peace begins to rise. Not as a gift, but as a consequence of clarity. We begin to breathe differently. We ground into a truth that does not need to be proven. It simply is. This intelligence of life doesn't operate with rewards or punishments. It operates with precision. It offers exactly what we need to grow, no more, no less. Sometimes that means letting go of the things we wanted most, not because they were bad, but because they are not part of this moment, this lesson, this stage of who we are becoming. Letting go is not a weakness. Letting go is listening. So the next time you feel yourself grasping for something, pause. Don't shut down the desire. Don't shame yourself for it. Just observe. Ask it, what are you really trying to give me? And then let life respond. Not everything we want is meant to be ours, but everything meant for us is already here, in some form, in some lesson, in some invitations we haven't yet recognized. And when we stop trying to get more and start learning to receive what already is, the suffering of wanting slowly fades into the quiet peace of presence. Chapter 3. Understanding Universal Law. There is a structure beneath everything. Even in chaos there is a pattern. Even in pain there is order. Life does not move randomly. It is guided, not by superstition, not by chance, but by law. A law that isn't written in books or taught in schools. A law that isn't voted on or changed by opinion. A law that simply is. This law doesn't ask for your belief to operate. You don't have to agree with it for it to affect you. It functions whether or not you notice. And the moment you do notice, the moment you begin to observe its presence in your life, something extraordinary happens. Things begin to make sense. Universal law is not moral law. It's not about good or bad. It's not a system of rewards or punishments. It's a field of intelligence that governs how reality unfolds. Just like gravity doesn't care if you're aware of it, these laws don't need your approval. They only ask one thing, that you pay attention. Every time something in your life flows with ease, every time something aligns effortlessly, every time you feel peace without trying, that's the law in motion. And every time you hit a wall, when something refuses to work no matter how hard you push, it's not because life is against you. It's because you've stepped outside the rhythm of the law. We believe that we can control life if we put in more effort, think more clearly, and fight longer. However, force is not a response from the law. It reacts to reality. Doors open when you align with it. Everything slows down, breaks down, or gets heavy when you fight it. This isn't a penalty, it's criticism. One basic realization is necessary to comprehend the law. Life always reacts to itself in predictable ways. You get an orange tree if you sow an orange seed. You get strife if you sow enmity. Even if it takes time, peace blooms when it is sown. This isn't a theory. Verification is what this is. The law expresses itself through cause and effect, through resonance, through cycles, through mirrors. Whatever you put into the field of life, consciously or unconsciously, creates a ripple. That ripple returns, not to judge you, but to teach you, to show you what you're creating, to help you remember your part in this equation. And so, when something doesn't work in your life, don't ask what's wrong with life. Ask, what part of me is out of alignment with what's true? It's not always an easy question, but it's a liberating one, because it brings the power back to where it belongs, not in control, but in understanding. You don't need to be perfect to be in alignment. You don't need to have everything figured out, but you do need to be honest. Be honest about what you're choosing. Be honest about what you're ignoring. Be honest about whether you're following your inner truth or fighting it. The law always shows you where you stand, not through theories, but through outcomes, through results. If a situation in your life feels draining, stuck, or toxic, it's a sign, not a verdict but a reflection. It's life saying, this does not flow with the deeper order. And when you start listening to those signs, when you stop trying to force life and instead begin to follow its rhythm, you move into a different space. You move into grace, into flow, into effortlessness, not because there are no challenges, but because you stop fighting reality. People often ask, but how do I know what the law wants? The answer is not in a book or someone else's advice. It's in your own experience. What works, works. What flows, flows. What brings deep peace, even amidst uncertainty, is alignment. And what consistently breaks, breaks down, or brings you out of your integrity, that is your signal. There is no formula, only awareness, only presence. The law speaks softly, it doesn't shout, but it always speaks. And the more you quiet your mind, the more you feel the subtle nudges, the inner yes, the inner no, the way your body contracts when something is wrong and relaxes when something is right. That's the language of alignment. Understanding the law doesn't mean you'll never face pain again. Pain is part of the path, but the nature of that pain changes. It stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like purification, like a breaking down of what's false so that what is real can emerge. And slowly, you begin to trust. You trust that what is unfolding is for you. You trust that every delay has its place. You trust that when something leaves, it's not a mistake. It's space being made for something more aligned. Trust becomes your foundation, not because you have guarantees, but because you've seen the law work again and again in the quiet moments of clarity. You begin to realize that the law is not something outside of you. It lives inside you. It is the voice of your higher self. It is the intelligence of life guiding itself back into wholeness. It is the map you've always carried even when you forgot how to read it. You recognize that obeying the law is not about submission, it's about participation. It's about entering into cooperation with the rhythm of the universe rather than trying to dance against it. And the moment you do, your life stops feeling like a struggle and begins to feel like a song. And when you choose to honor that rhythm, not out of fear, but from reverence, life begins to honor you back, not with applause but with presence, not with control, but with flow, not with perfection, but with peace. Chapter 4. The Reality That Teaches. Reality is not just something we endure. It's not a neutral backdrop where life plays out at random. Reality is a teacher. It speaks. It instructs. And if we are quiet enough to listen, it reveals to us exactly what we need to see about ourselves. But we don't often listen. We resist. We complain. We label reality as good or bad, fair or unfair, according to what we think should be happening instead. We treat life like it owes us something, and when it fails to match our ideals, we react, not with curiosity but with frustration. Yet every situation that surrounds us is part of a greater intelligence. What happens in our environment, in our relationships, in our own bodies, it is not meaningless. It is not accidental. Everything that arises carries with it a lesson, a message, a mirror. But to learn from it, we must be willing to drop the question, why is this happening to me? And instead ask, what is this trying to show me? We assume that we are victims of external events. We say things like, I can't be at peace because of what's happening in the world, or I would be happy if they acted differently. But in saying this, we hand over our inner state to outer forces. We forget that life isn't here to accommodate our expectations, it's here to stretch them. Reality is the curriculum. You don't need to invent a spiritual path. You don't need to travel to a sacred place. Your life just as it is the classroom. And every interaction, every delay, every disappointment, every joy, every trigger, these are the teachers. When something disturbs you, that's the first signal. It means something inside you has not yet been integrated. Something has not yet been understood. Reality is never trying to hurt you. It's trying to reveal you, to help you see what you believe, what you fear, what you still hold on to that no longer serves your peace. You cannot heal what you refuse to face. And so, life will lovingly place before you, again and again, the very situations that have the power to awaken you until you learn the lesson they carry. This isn't about blame, it's about responsibility. To take responsibility is not to say everything is your fault. It's to say, everything that appears in my life is here to teach me something. Even if I didn't cause it, I can still learn from it. Even if I can't control it, I can still grow through it. This shift changes everything. Instead of feeling powerless in the face of reality, you begin to feel guided by it. Instead of resisting what is, you begin to lean into it with presence. You stop asking reality to change and start allowing it to reveal the parts of yourself you've forgotten to love, to examine, to accept. There's a quiet kind of wisdom that comes when you stop fighting life, when you stop arguing with what's happening and begin to let it teach you. This doesn't mean you become passive. It means you become wise. You stop reacting and start responding, with awareness, not impulse. Sometimes what's teaching you isn't dramatic. It's subtle, a delay in traffic, a cancelled appointment, an unexpected silence. Other times, it's loud, a breakup, a betrayal, a loss. But in both cases, the same principle applies. What's happening is happening for a reason. Not always a comfortable one, but always a purposeful one. The discomfort is not a sign that something's wrong. It's a sign that something's moving. Something is changing shape within you. And if you stay present through that process, if you remain open in the discomfort instead of closing down, you begin to see the deeper order underneath it all. There's no need to understand the lesson instantly. Life doesn't operate on our timelines. Sometimes the lesson only becomes clear months or years later. What matters is your willingness to ask the right question now. What am I being asked to see that I've never seen before? Your current reality, no matter how messy, how beautiful, how uncertain, is not a mistake. It's the exact arrangement of experiences designed to show you who you are and what you're ready to outgrow. You are not being tested. You are being shown the truth. And when you accept that your life is your teacher, you stop looking for something better and start looking deeper. Deeper into what is, deeper into yourself, deeper into the silent intelligence that orchestrates each moment for your growth. Some days you'll resist. That's okay. Some days you'll forget. That's okay too. But the more often you return to this simple awareness, that reality is here to teach, not to punish, the more gently you'll move through life. The more love you'll have for the process. You'll feel even in the middle of uncertainty. When you let life be your teacher, everything becomes meaningful. Nothing is wasted. And even the moments you once tried to escape become the very ones that awaken you. This is the real spiritual work. Not to escape reality, but to become a student of it. To let it shape you, soften you, mature you. And in time, you'll come to see that the parts of your life that once caused you pain were not interruptions on the path. They were the path. And all along, reality was not your enemy. It was your mirror, your mentor, and your silent guide back to yourself. Chapter 5. Comprehension is freedom. There comes a moment in every journey where understanding replaces resistance. A soft shift, a deep breath, a space inside you that suddenly feels bigger, not because life changed, but because you saw it differently. That moment is comprehension, and it changes everything. Comprehension is not the same as knowledge. You can memorize ideas, repeat philosophies, and read every spiritual book on the shelf. But until a truth lives inside your bones, it is not yet yours. Knowledge lives in the mind. Comprehension lives in the soul. And this is what sets the journey apart. You're not here to collect answers. You're here to understand what those answers really mean for your life. True freedom doesn't come from figuring everything out. It comes from seeing things as they are, and finally understanding why they had to be that way. Many people suffer not because they are lost, but because they have not yet understood the laws that govern their experience. They believe that life should be fair, according to their preferences, that things should always make sense immediately, and that pain is a sign that something is wrong. But comprehension reveals a different truth. It tells us that life is not chaotic, it is precise. That suffering is not a failure, it is a message. That nothing happens without purpose, even if we don't see it yet. Every time you comprehend something deeply, a layer of suffering falls away. That's how healing happens, not by erasing the past, but by seeing it clearly, by understanding why it happened, what it taught you, and who it allowed you to become. Comprehension is the gateway to peace, and peace is not something that happens when your life becomes perfect. Peace is what happens when your understanding becomes deep enough to hold what's imperfect without trying to change it. But comprehension requires humility. It asks you to admit that maybe you've misunderstood, that maybe what you thought was punishment was actually precision. Maybe what you've been avoiding was the exact doorway you needed to walk through. And this is why pain has so much value, because it leads you to ask questions you never would have considered in comfort. Pain pulls you inward. It slows you down. It forces you to examine what's really going on beneath the surface of your reactions. It shows you what you truly believe, not what you say you believe. Most of us think we understand ourselves until life brings a challenge that cracks us open. In those moments, we're not being broken, we're being revealed, and what is revealed can finally be healed. You may have noticed by now that the same themes repeat in your life. Similar conflicts, familiar disappointments, the same emotional patterns dare raised in new circumstances. This isn't a coincidence, it's curriculum. Life repeats what you haven't yet understood, not to punish you, but to help you complete the lesson. And once you see the pattern clearly, once the message finally lands, everything shifts. You no longer need the repetition. You don't need to suffer your way to wisdom. The law doesn't require you to struggle. It only requires you to understand. When comprehension arrives, it feels like clarity, like space, like stillness. You stop needing others to change in order for you to feel peace. You stop blaming life for your discomfort. You stop bargaining with reality. Instead, you begin to walk with it, to flow with it. You find freedom not in changing the world, but in changing how you see the world. This kind of freedom is subtle. It doesn't always look dramatic from the outside. But inside, it changes the shape of everything. You begin to feel more centered, less reactive, more loving. Not because you're trying to be, but because understanding dissolves the fear that once made you defensive. And that is why comprehension is not just a spiritual idea. It is the path itself. It's the difference between surviving and evolving, between enduring life and being transformed by it. The most beautiful thing about comprehension is that it's never too late. You can go back and reinterpret your entire life through new eyes. You can revisit old wounds with deeper compassion. You can find meaning in what once felt meaningless, and in doing so, you rewrite the narrative, not to change what happened, but to reclaim your relationship with it. This is what frees you from the past, not forgetting, but understanding, not escaping, but integrating. Some lessons come quickly, others unfold over years, but every insight, every realization, every moment of clarity adds a new thread to the tapestry of who you are. Comprehension is never wasted. It builds, it strengthens, it anchors you in something deeper than circumstance. You stop asking life to get easier, and you start asking yourself to get wiser. You stop praying for things to change, and you start inviting yourself to see them differently. You stop searching for escape, and you begin to embrace what is, knowing it came to liberate you. Perhaps the most surprising thing of all is that comprehension brings joy, not surface joy, but soul-deep joy. The kind of joy that can exist even in grief, even in chaos, even in endings. Because when you understand that everything belongs, you don't need life to be perfect to be at peace. You just need to understand enough to stop resisting. This is freedom, not the absence of struggle, but the presence of understanding. Chapter 6. All is within the law. There is a profound peace that begins to grow the moment you understand this truth. Nothing is outside the law, not your mistakes, not your heartbreak, not the timing of your life, not the things that arrived, not the things that didn't. All of it, every last detail, is within the law. This law is not a system of reward and punishment. It is not a doctrine of right and wrong. It is the silent order that governs reality. It doesn't operate by opinion. It doesn't shift to suit personal preference, and yet it is always working in your favor, not to give you what you want, but to give you what will help you grow. When something happens, it is not an accident. When something falls apart, it is not a glitch. When something refuses to manifest, it is not rejection. These things, painful as they may feel, are not failures. They are alignments. They are the law at work. You might ask, but what about injustice? What about loss? And the law replies, not with justification, but with invitation. Invitation to see deeper, to realize that just because something is difficult does not mean it is meaningless. Just because something feels unfair does not mean it is outside of order. The law is not interested in pleasing your ego. It's here for the evolution of your soul. And when you truly begin to see this, when you stop dividing life into what should and shouldn't be happening, you enter a different kind of relationship with reality. You stop resisting it. You stop demanding that life look a certain way in order for you to be okay. You begin, instead, to listen. When you understand that everything is within the law, you stop feeling like life is attacking you. You stop asking, why me? And begin asking, what for? Not as an escape, but as a sacred inquiry. A way of discovering the wisdom embedded in the unfolding of your life. There is no circumstance too chaotic, no experience too painful, no person too misguided to exist outside the law. Even confusion has a role. Even failure is a teacher. Even silence is a message. Everything that is belongs. This understanding doesn't erase your emotions. It makes space for them. You can still grieve, still feel loss, still desire change. But your relationship with those feelings changes. They are no longer enemies, they are part of the process. When something doesn't work, it isn't because life is broken. It's because it doesn't belong to your path, not in that form, not in that time, not in that way. And that's not something to mourn, it's something to trust. Because every no that life gives is a yes to something more aligned, and every delay is a preparation, and every detour is a redirection towards something you could not yet see. Let's take a real-life example. Imagine a woman who spent years trying to conceive. She and her partner did everything, treatments, specialists, rituals, and each time the answer was no. The grief was deep. It felt senseless. It felt like the universe had closed its doors. But years later, something shifted. She found herself mentoring troubled teenagers, some of whom had been abandoned, some who had never known stable love. One of them eventually came to live with her, then another. Over time, she realized she had become a mother in a way that bypassed biology, but fulfilled her soul. Did the law deny her motherhood? No. It simply rerouted the path. The pain of not conceiving was not a punishment. It was preparation. It was redirecting her toward a role that would have never emerged had she stayed fixed on a single outcome. That is the law at work. Precise, unpredictable, loving, though not always in the way we expect. You may not always understand in the moment, but you can trust that understanding will come when you're ready, when you've grown, when your vision has cleared. The law doesn't operate on your timeline. It operates on the rhythm of wholeness, of exactness, of intelligence beyond comprehension. Think of all the things that didn't go your way, and now looking back, you're grateful they didn't. Think of the pain that revealed your strength, the closed door that protected you, the loss that woke you up. This is not hindsight, this is the law made visible. And when you begin to recognize the perfection in what once felt like failure, you start to walk through life differently, with less resistance, with more reverence, with a quiet kind of faith. Not the faith that everything will go your way, but that everything will serve your way home. You start to see that even your own resistance, even your forgetfulness, even the parts of you that doubted the process, yes, even those, were within the law. Because the law isn't here to punish you for misunderstanding. It's here to keep guiding you back to understanding. This is what makes the law so beautiful. It never stops working even when you do. It never gives up on you. It doesn't abandon you when you get lost. It simply waits, patiently, holding the path until you're ready to return. And when you finally stop fighting and start listening, when you start walking with life instead of against it, you'll feel something shift inside, a relaxation, a softness, a remembrance, not of something new, but of something you always knew deep down, that everything is already being taken care of. You were never outside the law. You are only outside your awareness of it. So let yourself return. Let yourself trust. Let yourself stop arguing with reality and start learning from it. Let yourself drop the exhausting effort to control everything and open to the deeper invitation, to align. Because when you stop asking the law to obey your will and start asking yourself to follow its wisdom, you'll find something you've been chasing all along. Peace. Not the peace that comes from a perfect life, but the peace that comes from seeing that life is already perfect in its purpose, that even the chaos has order, that even your doubts are part of the unfolding, that everything, truly everything, is within the law. Chapter 7. Peace is the sign of alignment. There is a signal that tells you when you are aligned. It isn't exciting. It isn't external success. It isn't the absence of challenges. The signal is peace, quiet, steady, unshakable peace. Peace is not the result of controlling your life. It is the result of understanding it, of flowing with it, of no longer needing things to be different in order for you to feel okay. When peace is present, not as a fleeting mood, but as a foundation, it means you are within the law. You are where you need to be, doing what your soul came here to do. It is tempting to measure life by what we accomplish, to believe that the more we gain, the more aligned we are. But alignment isn't visible on the outside. You could be in a storm and still be aligned. You could be letting go of everything you once thought you needed and still be walking in perfect rhythm with life. Peace does not mean life stops challenging you. It means life no longer destabilizes you. You begin to feel grounded, even when you're unsure. You begin to trust, even when you don't have guarantees. Because peace isn't something life gives you. It's something that emerges when you stop resisting what life is offering. We often think of peace as something we must work toward, something we earn once we fix everything. But the truth is, peace is already here, always. It's just buried beneath the noise, beneath our demands, beneath our beliefs that something is wrong with this moment. Peace is what's left when you stop trying to escape. Think of how much energy we spend avoiding what is, resisting the moment. I wish people were different, wanting life to hurry up or slow down or take a different path. Every time we do this, we step out of alignment, and every time we come back to presence, back to acceptance, back to trust, we feel peace return. Peace is not passive, it is powerful. It doesn't mean you stop growing. It means you stop forcing. You stop acting from fear. You stop living from the tight grip of control. Instead, you respond. You listen. You follow the current rather than trying to swim upstream. When peace becomes your compass, you begin to make different choices. You let go of arguments that don't need to happen. You walk away from what drains your spirit. You no longer chase what doesn't resonate. You stop needing to win, to prove, to fix. You move in harmony with what is real. That doesn't mean life gets easier. It means life becomes clearer. You begin to see what matters. You begin to feel what supports you. And you begin to trust that when something no longer brings peace, it's life gently guiding you in a new direction. There are moments when peace surprises you. It appears in the middle of grief. It shows up when you say no for the first time. It lingers after a difficult goodbye. These are not coincidences. These are confirmations. Peace arrives when you're aligned with the truth, even when that truth is hard. And in those moments you realize that peace is not the absence of pain. It's the presence of understanding. You can have everything the world admires and still feel lost. You can follow all the rules and still feel empty. But the moment you come back into alignment, the moment your actions and values match, the moment your heart is fully present, peace floods in. You may have had glimpses of it. A quiet morning where everything felt still. A conversation where you were fully heard. A choice that felt scary but somehow right. These are reminders, invitations. They're showing you what it feels like when you're in the flow. The goal is not to chase peace, but to clear what's in the way of it. To question the beliefs that say you must suffer to grow. To soften the parts of you that believe chaos is normal. To remember that peace is not a reward. It's your natural state when you're no longer arguing with life. Even your discomfort can serve peace if you let it guide you, not harden you. Peace doesn't mean ignoring the world's pain. It means you engage with it without becoming it. You offer presence without losing yourself. You hold space for change without carrying the weight of it all. Peace allows you to act, not react, to express, not suppress, to love, not to control, to feel deeply without drowning. It is not fragile, it is not shallow, it is rooted in clarity. And when peace becomes your default, your relationships change, your decisions change, your energy shifts. You begin to attract what resonates with your frequency, not because you forced it, but because you aligned with it. This is the final invitation. Let peace be your teacher. Let it be your compass. Let it be your confirmation that you are within the law. When you no longer need life to match your plans in order to be okay, when you can sit inside the unknown and still feel grounded, when your inner world is calm even if the outer world is loud, you'll know you are home. Let peace become your evidence. Let it show you where to go. Let it guide you, not as an escape from life, but as a deep, luminous embrace of life. Let it rise within you as the voice that says, you are exactly where you are meant to be. And when the world no longer steals your peace, you'll know you've found the path. Conclusion. This journey was never about learning something new. It was about remembering something ancient, something already alive within you, a deeper intelligence, a quieter wisdom, a law that has always been guiding you, even in the moments you forgot how to listen. You've walked through the roots of understanding. You've heard that what you have is what you need. You've faced the suffering of wanting. You've looked reality in the eye and let it teach you. You've seen that comprehension dissolves confusion, that everything is within the law, and that peace is your most honest compass. Now you return to your life, but you return differently, not with answers, but with deeper questions, not with more control, but with more clarity, not with fixed outcomes, but with an open heart. Let this be your invitation, not to rush back into noise, but to carry this stillness with you, to move more slowly, to speak more truthfully, to observe your patterns with gentleness, to trust life even when it doesn't look how you planned. Let this wisdom not end with this recording. Let it echo into your daily choices, into the way you love, into the way you listen, into the way you forgive and begin again. If this journey has touched you, if it has offered even a single moment of clarity or comfort, I invite you to stay connected. Subscribe to this channel, not just to support the work, but to continue walking this path together. This space is a place for reflection, for learning, for remembering. There will be more insights, more tools, more companions on the road. Let's stay open to them, together. And as you continue forward, remember, peace is not something you find out there. Peace is what you uncover when you stop trying to be anywhere else but here. You are not behind, you are not broken, you are already on the path, and the path is within the law.